All right. Hey everyone. Let's see, let's get chat set up. And let's make sure Twitter knows that we're live. Alright. How's it going? Hey Priya, how's it going? Alright, so today we're working on pages for the new short comic. Sorry about my hair, I just got out of the shower, so I'm a little bedraggled. Alright, how's this look? So here's the inks for the pages that we're working on today. You'll kind of see these panels in more detail as I go. I'm doing well. Keeping busy as much as I can. Okay. Now, I had meant to do the base wash before starting the stream, but we've been having a little bit of a slow morning here at the Aldrich house. So we're doing the base wash now. So, if you haven't seen the announcements online, this is for my new short comic. It's called Troll Apple Pancakes. Troll Apple Pancakes. You could all hear my husband sing the little ditty for it in the front room. This is my little quarantine project to keep myself sane and happy. It's just kind of a fun little short story. I had the idea for it like 4 or 5 days ago. So this is like the fastest I've ever moved on a project. The point of it is to be kind of like free and loose and a little improvisational. Just something nice to work on and something nice to kind of put out for people to read. It's pretty low stakes. It's basically the story of a little troll child who their mother sends them to go get the key ingredient to the titular troll apple pancakes. And they have to avoid several temptations along the way, including the temptation to sneak a taste of the apples early. So you'll see I'm going pretty light and fast with this. This is just to kind of establish a base undertone so that all the colors are unified, and so it kind of establishes the temperature of the light, which in this case is a pretty warm sunshine. The yellow also kind of helps give it kind of a vellum texture, or a color rather. So it kind of gives it that old school glowy, like fairy tale look, which is a look I like quite a bit. Alright, we're going to switch to a big brush. Size of the brush I'm about to use. It's bigger than what I usually work with, but it's good for these big washes. There. This is my big watercolor wash brush. Oops. realized a couple days ago, like as I was starting in on this project, that while I'd stocked up on food, I had forgotten to stock up on watercolor paper. So this is my last block. I only have a few pages left. Thankfully, I was able to find a shop that ships them, because all the art stores here are closed right now. So I should be able to continue without much of a pause over the next couple weeks. The plan is to do this comic kind of start to finish over the course of 2 weeks, hopefully. It might go a little bit longer than that, depending on how lackadaisical I get with the pace. It's just mostly something to, fill my time and have some fun. Practice my comic skills. I'm putting it up as a webcomic for all patrons, so if you're not on my Patreon, this is a good time to jump on. And then once it's all done, I'll be putting it up for sale on Gumroad. It's good that you find a place that ships. Yeah, there's a lot of, and it also helps because, a lot of businesses could still use the business even though they're closed right now. I'm hoping there's not going to be a delay with it, but we'll see. Things are crazy everywhere for everyone right now. So what I like about this brush is you can see how big it is and how much of a surface area I can cover, but also the tip can get really fine, so I can still kind of do these kind of fine detail edges. It's a really good, versatile brush. Yellow to be too bold because we're going to be painting a lot of localized colors over it, but I don't want it to overwhelm them from the bottom layer. So there's the underwash on that page done. Got a little messy towards the bottom here, but let's do the other page. I have to just tilt you guys like this because I don't want to put the camera on the wet wash. ordinarily, if I was doing like a regular painting, everything would get covered in this wash. You'll notice that I'm kind of avoiding the characters, and that's because I want them to kind of their own localized color. This will kind of make them stand out from the background a bit better. They'll make them kind of pop against the rest of the composition. When you're doing comics, readability is obviously kind of the first and foremost priority when you're creating a page. You want people to be able to glance at it and know immediately what they're looking at. And so kind of giving them their own color separate from the overall tone of the background really helps to kind of accomplish that. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be kind of glancing up from time to time. Just make sure there's a message of that. Doing streams like these pretty regularly for the next little bit, especially while I work on this comic. Just because it'll be easy to kind of have the content for it, and this is one of my things that isn't under contract. It's just for me, so I can share as much of the process as I want. Lauren asks, how long does it usually take you to sketch out a comic page? So it kind of depends on what part of the process you mean by sketch out. So in terms of like actually doing the drawing, like from pencil to ink. It depends on the complexity of the page. I'm going pretty hard on the detail on some of these panels, like you can see. So from pencils to inks, it takes me several hours. I think this one page right here took me, I guess maybe 3-4 hours to do. If you're talking about just like planning, that goes by much faster, but it requires a little bit more like headspace to do. Here, I can show you guys, just so you can see how loose my planning stage is. I had the idea for this a few days ago, and it's a wordless comic. They just kind of just speak in emotes, or they don't speak at all. It's mostly acting. So I didn't write a script like I usually do. I just went straight to the thumbnails, the small sort of teeny sketches to plot out the pacing and direction of the comic. And this is kind of what the thumbnails for it look like. I just sketched it on this sheet of paper. But so, for example, this page right here is this page. So you can see how loose that is. Like, so look at that middle panel specifically, like how loose and scribbly that is compared to what it ends up being. And then of course we'll add in more detail with paint as we go along. Pri asks, do you have any books or resources do you recommend for people who are trying to learn how to make comics? Yeah, so there's a bunch. So apart from just reading comics that you like and kind of studying what they do in terms of panel layout and flow and speech bubble placement, I always recommend Scott McCloud's books, specifically Understanding Comics and Making Comics. Anything you would learn in like top tier like comics illustration college course, you will learn in those books. Not a lot of people in the industry understand the medium as well as Scott does, and he does a great job in both those books of kind of explaining and laying out and demonstrating different principles of comics. The thing I like specifically about Scott McCloud's comics books is they don't contain like a prescribed this is how you do comics, which I think a lot of books that could be considered how-to books do. They kind of outline and explore a lot of different methods of making and use examples in comics history. He goes through different techniques from different cultures, so American comics versus Japanese comics versus French comics versus like kind of the Franco-Belgian market. Different genres, different types, different methods of panel layout and pacing and shorthand. They're very in-depth, so I would definitely recommend Scott McCloud's Making Comics and Understanding Comics. And other than that, I would say anything that kind of helps you perfect your craft and technique, your draftsmanship, is really, really helpful. Comics are a visual medium. They're a visual storytelling medium, so anything you can do that really helps to kind of refine your visuals. So books on drawing, books on reference for drawing, drawing from life whenever you can. Alright, so there's our washes done. You can see that nice yellow tint. Gives it a nice warm glow. Something, and once this is dry, I'll start adding in some more local color. I'm trying to decide if I want to do overall washes for scenes or if I just want to go straight to specific color points. Probably color points is easier, then I don't have to change out the water well halfway through. So I've got the previous spread close to hand so I can color match where it needs to be. So that's the kinds of colors that we're going to be looking at. Just so everything's kind of a consistent tone and shade. Yeah, but in terms of learning comics, the college I went to wasn't large enough to have an illustration course or a comics making course. And so everything I learned about it, I learned from studying myself, from the books I mentioned, from talking to colleagues, from poring over and studying comics that I felt were impactful and that did things that I kind of wanted to be able to replicate also. I was hugely inspired by Jeff Smith's Bone series, by Mike Mignola's Hellboy books. A lot of French fantasy graphic novelists are doing work that I really admire and try to emulate. Yeah, there's just a lot of resources. There's a lot of stuff online now too. A lot of people are very generous with their time and kind of showing different techniques and different ways of working. Let's re-up on Instagram so they know that we're streaming. I always have to kind of promote midway through streams because people get busy and forget. Hi Tommy, how's it going? Thank you for asking. You're very welcome. If you have any more, let me know. Just waiting for this wash to dry and then we'll keep getting on with it. All right. That should be dry enough. Alright, we're going to start with local color. I usually work on skin tones first when I do comics. Because these ones have just sort of stylized bright tones, like the Troll Child's skin is like a sky blue. I'm not too worried about that because it's not as delicate. This little fawn boy over here, I think is going to have normal skin tones, so I'm going to paint him first, and then we'll kind of go through the usual circuit of warm to cold colors and light to dark colors. That's kind of the usual operating process when I paint. And I'll do that across both pages of the spread until all the flat colors done, and then we'll do shading last. I don't know if we'll get to shading on stream, but get as far as we can. You also kind of want to move sort of fast with skin tones, because if you stop and the watercolor dries, it'll leave a weird kind of splotchy line. So if you want a nice, smooth tone, you have to kind of go pretty quick. It's not that hard. That's the one character with normal skin tones. The this point in the story. So let's start in on local colors. So yellow's first because it's the lightest and the warmest. Then we'll go from there. So we got walls of the cottage here. You gonna come join? My husband's gonna come join, everyone.
Got nothing to do.
Careful. It's a pretty chill stream day today. Keep your headphones. You want to come listen to music with me?
Sure. Let's move it up.
All right. What else needs yellow? A lot of the palette, at least especially for the main characters, is like primary colors, just to keep the palette pretty simple. Here, let me put 1 second on the audio. Oh, there we go.
I heard you talking about earlier about how you get inspiration from things. I always found it really interesting how you make those Pinterests.
Oh yeah, I haven't done one for Trollpole Pancakes because when I'm working on, when I have an idea for a new project and I have kind of a basic paragraph in a notebook about what I want the story to be about, one of the first things I do is I try to really firm up the tone of the story in my head, kind of what just the general overall like look and feeling of it is. And lately I've been making like little Pinterest boards of just like photos or illustrations that I think kind of capture the tone and feeling of what I'm going for. That's kind of part of what's a pretty long, extensive planning phase for a lot of my books. For Troll Apple Pancakes, which is this current project, I moved really fast on this one. So this one doesn't have a Pinterest board. I might make one after the fact, just for fun. But
My favorite Pinterest board you made is the one for our future house.
oh yeah, I do have the kind of usual Pinterest board of like lifestyle and like house and fashion and stuff.
Lots of dragon doorknobs and weird hand-shaped things.
Yeah, sort of wizard hermit chic. Priya says hello.
Hello.
What mythical creatures are in these pictures? So this is kind of a hodgepodge of weird fairy-ish stuff. So obviously the main characters are trolls. The title of the story is, as I said, Troll Apple Pancakes.
Troll Apple Pancakes.
And we've got, she's like a little dryad, like blossom fairy spirit. We got some fawns. This is a cameo of our dog, who, yeah, we both just came in here to hang out in the stream, and we both got crowded in here, and he left to go nap in the front room. He doesn't want to be party to all this chit chat.
Damn loud.
And I'm gonna, in the next few pages, there's gonna be like a little mermaid, kappa-ish sea creature. As a spoiler, there's gonna be a dragon at one point, because I love putting dragons in things. And I'm putting in a capybara because I've always wanted to draw one. So there's going to be a capybara in this. That's not a mythical creature. It's just a thing I want to draw.
I do love that the troll child runs on all fours.
He's a cutie.
So cute.
Oh, I forgot to do the skin tones on the fawn in like the distant shot here. Okay. Move up to here. Yeah, so it's just kind of the process of going through the warm to cool tones first, and then shading comes last for me. I should have just done this yellow as part of the wash for her dress, because I kind of want to do this light tone.
I've always enjoyed your clothes. Whenever you draw clothes on things, I'm always impressed by the swooshiness.
They're fun to
Looks
draw.
very real.
Thank you. I like good swooshes, and so I like kind of loose to draw, like kind of loose clothes or just things that can swoosh. It's fun to draw, and it also kind of helps show motion when you're drawing comics. Like, for example, with the Troll Child, I show a lot of their motion because of their tail. So you can kind of tell like where they've come from and where they're going, just based on like what their tail's doing. Mm-hmm. All right. His little trousers down here. All right. From here, let's do kind of sienna bits. And we'll do red after that. That's a little strong. So this phase is basically just like me working on a coloring book that I drew, which is kind of fun. This is like the part where I can kind of zone out.
Says clothes are amazing. I love drawing intricate clothing.
Yeah, you know, I did learn a lesson from doing my first graphic novel series, Estranged. While I wanted to do these cool, like super intricate, almost like Final Fantasy level outfit designs, and I created some designs that I'm pretty proud of. You know, and I kind of locked them in and showed them off online and showed them to my editor and whatever. And then I started working on the graphic novel and realized I would have to draw them like thousands of times. So if I drew like a super ornate set of armor, I was now...
The child's armor is intense.
Yeah, one of the protagonists has a really intense suit of armor, and I was sort of locked into drawing that armor repeatedly from different angles in different light for two novels. Yeah, so my clothing designs tend to be... I still like them to be stylish, but they're a little more simple now. Like the Troll Child is just a shirt and some trousers. Pretty basic. Let's see. I do want that to be a little bolder.
I mean, they're like forest trolls. It would make sense for him to have more toned down clothing. Like if he was like a court troll, maybe he'd have
something a little fancier. It's actually probably it for that. We'll mix in a darker brown.
I'm not sure if you covered this already, but what is the point of the first layer that you put on just now?
Yeah, so I chatted a little bit earlier on the stream, but for those who are new to the stream, that sort of yellow undertone, it helps unify all the colors. Because it's going to be a lot of different colors, obviously, for the backgrounds, and it kind of helps tie them all together so they look like they're part of one world and one scene. And then it also establishes the tone of the light. So it's obviously kind of midday in the comic, so a nice kind of warm sunshine. He's going to kind of go into this kind of grotto bit in the next spread, so that the underwash is going to be blue to kind of have like a cool shaded feel. But it also kind of helps give it that sort of old-fashioned vellum feel, so it kind of looks like a classic storybook illustration. I love Ed's armor. Thank you so much. I'm glad it's appreciated, because it was a ton of work. But it is one of my favorite designs I've ever done. So.
Every now and again during book 1 and book 2, I would just hear him like yell, "Why? Why did I do this to myself?" But I think it was worth it too. I love his armor.
To kind of sell myself out a little bit, I got more used to it in book 2, and I kind of got a better grip on it, and I enjoyed drawing it. In book 1, Ed goes through like 2 or 3 cloaks over the course of the story, just so I'd have an excuse to not have to draw the full suit of armor. But then I would kind of miss drawing it, so I would find a plot reason for him to get rid of the cloak so I could draw it for a bit, and then I would get sick of it, and he'd pick up a new cloak, and it was just very silly.
Deanna said, I remember looking at his balders and breastplate and gawking at how much work it's been like.
It was a lot. By book 2, I had drawn him enough that I was actually more comfortable drawing the armor than, a cloak over it or some other outfit. And so by book 2, I didn't really have a problem with it. And I, in fact, added a fancy cape to go with it. But yeah, book 1 was rough.
I would assume it's like the angle, like having to really think about, like, what does all this filigree look like from a side view,
Right.
And I think your solution to creating character sheets that are up all the time that you can kind of reference.
Yeah, I would show you. Idea. I would show you guys a good look at the reference sheets that I have up right now. Except I don't think I'm allowed to.
Yeah, you can't show them yet.
That's for the actual novel I'm working on.
Yeah, I was actually a little bummed out when you switched projects and you took down the character sheets because I was so used to seeing them.
Yeah, after working on the Estranged series for what was it, like almost 5 years?
Yeah.
It was a little sad when I took down the character sheets and put up the ones of the new characters, just because it was kind of like seeing friends move away.
I do like all the new characters up though. Like you said, he can't show you, but I'm looking at them and they're awesome.
Well, thanks, love. When the project gets announced, I'll post all the photos of the new characters, and I hope you guys will enjoy them just as much.
One of the perks of being married to you is I get to see all of the stuff early.
Yeah, you get the advanced look. Let's see, switch to a smaller brush.
It's funny though because when you were doing Estranged, like I had read the script beforehand, and I watched you draw and paint all of the panels and the pages, and then I never went back and read through your digital, putting them together. I only read them all together when I read the book when it came out.
Yeah, it's kind of a different experience when it's like kind of the entire thing in its intended form.
Go play outside with dryads and fawns.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful day outside today, and we're still stuck inside. I love these little like classic cartoon audio bites that come in on this lo-fi station sometimes. Cowboy Bebop pops up on here, like voice lines from it pretty often. Yeah, it's good. This little blossom spirit has just these little bird-like stick limbs. Like I said, this particular project, I mostly just wanted to use as a way to improvise like themes and motifs and designs. I like to draw just sort of to relax, like so big twisty forests and little fantasy critters and stuff. And so usually when I'm doing a graphic novel, I will take a huge amount of time to design characters and sort of figure out their look. I think each of these characters was like a single page for the design. For the Troll Mom and the Troll Child, I didn't even do different iterations of them. I did one sketch just for fun. Yes, I'm married. I did a single sketch, and that's just what they look like. just because I wanted to keep it loose, keep it pretty breezy. There. So this was the first sketch I did.
So happy.
And that's just how they look. Yeah, it was a pretty quick and breezy process on this one. And that's kind of the point. I wanted to kind of keep it fun and light, and it's pretty low stakes.
Do you notice though that you are using the new color palette that you're going to be using in the new book?
In the new book, I am. So if you guys have read Estranged, you know, because it was kind of an underground, kind of dark urban fantasy, it had kind of these deep slate blues and these kind of deep grayish greens, and it was very kind of dark toned. This project, and then the graphic novel I'm working on right now, it's more outdoor, it's lighter, it's a little more adventuresome and about travel and journeys. And so I've been using the same palette to kind of get used to painting it, where it's brighter colors, kind of more vivid pastel tones, stuff like that. All right, that's brown's mostly done. Actually, let's.
So I think that's interesting. Like color in itself can set an entire mood for a thing.
It's an important part of the storytelling process of like kind of picking the tones to, because people respond to different colors different ways. And so it's important. And I personally feel that color should do a fair amount of the heavy lifting on telling a story. And so I think a lot about what color things are. And
I'm gonna go a little bit closer to the mic when I talk. Sorry about that.
Can't quite hear Matthew. Sorry, I think the mic is from the camera here, and so we were kind of moving.
Yeah, I'll lean in towards it when I talk.
You know, for the next stream, I'll try and set up a dedicated audio feed from your mic.
Okay.
I wonder if I could do that now.
I'll just lean in for now. I don't want you to.
All right. Oh, we gotta paint this little squirrel up here. Sorry, I don't want to keep moving you guys around because I don't want you guys to get motion sick. But this stage, where I'm just kind of doing in the little like spot colors, it's a lot of kind of just jumping around the spread and, you know, popping in tones. I think next I want to do reds. Usually also when I'm doing a regular painting, there's a lot of like mixing of shades. Because I want this to be a pretty clean, simple, sort of brightly toned story. I'm not really mixing paints, just kind of whatever is straight out of the tube is what I'm putting on. And then the sort of thickness of the paint is what's kind of creating the variety in tone. So let's see. Troll Mom's got red skin. And Troll Child has a red shirt. As you guys can see, it's just going through piece by piece, bit by bit. Okay, why don't I just keep it pulled out for now? Just so I'm not constantly jiggling you guys. Also, that way the mic stays near Matt for a bit.
If you had to pick a name for the character, because he doesn't really have a name, right? 'Cause he's just
The troll child, I think.
Troll
is just
child.
what I've been calling him in my notes.
The epiphany you had earlier about fawns was pretty great. Yeah, about how fawn kids would be called kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when I was sketching and inking this page yesterday, I was talking to Matt about the fawn kid who's dancing in the field here, and it just struck me as funny that is what they would be called. It's just kids.
Makes sense.
Because goats, you know. Maybe a little more pigment. I'm also trying to kind of pick unexpected colors for this one to kind of make it a little more visually playful. And so if you've seen the first couple pages, you know that like the little swamp forest where the troll's hut is like kind of a weird minty green. This sort of thicket he's running through is going to be kind of like a lavender purple. Just kind of, you know, being unexpected and kind of just keeping the color palette playful.
The color is really important. I remember you were saying when you were doing the goblin that you chose to omit color for another reason as well, for giving a specific mood, right?
Yeah, so my other short comic, The Goblin, it's black and white, partially for speed's sake, because it was my first short comic, and I wanted to kind of be able to do it fairly quickly, but also because it's kind of more of a somber story, and I felt black and white would kind of give it that kind of starker tone that I felt would be kind of appropriate to the subject matter. So it's just thinking about, you know, what's best for the story, what helps convey the most information. Let's see. So I think my favorite drawing of this spread is I really like this drawing of the troll child in the middle here with his sparkly eyes.
Yeah. He wants it. He wants to go play so bad.
What did you name the knoll from the previous video? I forget the last name, but he goes by Hux, but his first name is Huxley. He had like a I can't remember his last name. I'll have to go back and look at the transcript, but yeah.
It was a good one though.
Huxley.
It was somebody in the chat came up with it.
The concept we landed on behind him was that he was a retired soldier who just wanted to work on his farm and kind of got pulled back into adventuring. So part of you guys will kind of see more as I post the actual pages, but a lot of the style of like the pacing and the kind of story here is very classic fairy tale. It's not quite like the big dark kind of epic ones like Sleeping Beauty or Little Red Riding Hood. Though I do like those kind of stories, and I have told those kinds of stories before. But there's plenty of folk tales, like especially kind of in the Appalachian region and parts of Germany, where it's just like sort of chore, like just sort of silly, whimsical, like chore, like doing errands. Almost kind of Aesop's fable-y. And this is kind of in that same vein of just kind of the stories that were obviously meant a little bit more for children, or kind of just designed to be more lighthearted.
What's he doing back there? He's bringing me his toy. And
the dog is trying to entice us to play just off screen.
I'm playing with him a little bit. Keep him preoccupied.
Keep him happy. Okay. Next we'll do pinks for the little blossom fairy. The goblin made me cry, really enjoyed it. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it made me cry too. Like when you finished, I was like, why are you doing this to me?
I'm not sorry. Do you have a favorite fable? It's a good question. It changes. It changes all the time. I have a big collection of Scandinavian fairy tales right now that I've been reading recently, which have a lot of trolls, which is part of the inspiration for this little story. I don't know. I have tons of like fairy tale and fable collections in the house that kind of just shifts depending on what I'm working on.
We did watch last night. We watched Jim Henson's Storyteller.
Yeah.
And what was the fable that was on there? It was a couple different ones.
There was a few ones. There was The Soldier in Death, which is like a weird rambling story about a guy who captures death in a bag.
With really creepy puppets for the devils.
Yeah, they just uploaded all of the Jim Henson Storyteller series from the 80s online. And
it really holds up still. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I
love that series.
I hadn't seen it in a long time. I thought I was really impressed.
Yeah, we watched Hans My Hedgehog, which
a weird one.
It's a deeply weird story. If you watch the Witcher series or read the books, one of the main pivotal arcs of the story is based on that fairy tale. It's a strange little story. And then I like kind of more literary fairy tales and ballads and stuff. I'm a big fan of the Ballad of Tam Lin, which is a story about the daughter of a Scottish lord who has to rescue a fairy knight. Stuff like that.
You did that one print of Tam Lin, right?
Yeah, I've done paintings based on it before.
I like that painting a lot.
Thanks. You can stay.
Yeah, like we have a lot of art in the house. I think like your office has a lot of your art, but like we also collect from other artists. Any of the events that we go to, anytime we find something that we really like, we definitely get it. We're running out of wall space on prints, but it's not going to stop us.
Let's see. Ooh, you know what I forgot? I need to actually pencil in a bit of line work here. So I don't paint over these lines.
So sometimes your background stuff is pencil and sometimes it's pen. Does that give a specific effect?
Yeah, so pencil's a bit softer. So it when you put the watercolor over it, it'll push further back in the background because the lines aren't as stark. I'm actually not doing that so much now. For this comic specifically, I've started doing a thing where I'll use the acrylic ink to ink stuff in the foreground. And then for the background, I'll dip my pen in the acrylic ink and then dip it in my water well, so it's much looser.
Is that what these over here like?
Yeah, so you can see it really well on this panel, where you can see the kind of stark ink lines of the troll child and the characters and the foreground stuff, and then as you get to this field and trees in the background, it's much kind of thinner, washier line work. It's just I've dipped in the ink and then dipped it in the water, and that kind of creates a stronger sense of depth. So I started doing a little bit.
Ooh, not that much. Yeah.
It washes out our face. It looks scary. All right. Back to the painting I was doing.
Kitsu's finally playing with me again. He was very mad at me yesterday because he got fully groomed, brushed, washed, nails done.
Yeah.
He was not having it.
Yeah, our dog is excited because we're home to play with him all the time, but he didn't realize the downside is we get bored eventually and just do a full spa day on him.
Oh, such a snub I got.
He was pretty ticked off. All right, that's that. So now here's where I start to hesitate a little bit on what I want to do next.
Is there a thought process behind which colors to pick next? Is it like a...
Yeah, so it's usually warm colors to cool colors and dark colors to light colors. There's some different tones of greens and things that come next. I'm just trying to decide which ones I want to do first. Does diluted acrylic ink act differently versus diluted regular ink? I've never heard of acrylic ink before. The only real difference is acrylic ink is waterproof, which is important as I do watercolors over it. If I were just to use an India ink or a walnut ink, which I use for sketching sometimes, if I were to do a wash of water over it, it would just completely destroy the lines. And I'd have to go back and re-ink over them. But acrylic just means that it's just resistant to water, so I can paint over it as much as I want.
How long does it take for it to dry?
Pretty fast. It's pretty fast. Depending on how thick it is, like a minute. All the stuff like the watercolor and the inks, a lot of the reason I like it is because, especially when you're doing comics, which is often a lot of work, this stuff dries pretty quickly, so I can kind of just keep going. Let's do the little weird minty green is only in a couple panels, so let's do that first. How did I do it there? I'm trying. I only painted these pages like a couple days ago, and I'm already kind of forgetting how I painted a lot of them. Maybe there are some India inks that are more waterproof than others. I just use a specific brand called FW ink. They're just acrylics. They come in a lot of different colors. I use a sepia tone for color work because the brown meshes a little bit better with color, so it doesn't have that stark black line cartoony look, which is a cool look that I like, but isn't necessarily what I'm usually going for. Obviously, it's still pretty cartoony, especially when you get the darker lines, but there is so much like dog hair on my palette.
On everything.
On everything.
Why are you so fluffy? Why?
Very fluffy.
Okay.
A little more blue. All right, let's try that. It's a little strong.
I would live in their house.
Yeah, it's cute. Nice little hut.
I mean, in New York, that hut would be
So much money.
so much money. Got a nice lake view.
Funny because it's sad.
Cozy cabin with lake view, close to shopping.
We do a lot of looking at real estate ads online as a couple, as you could tell. You can send a link to this to your mom if you wanted to. You can send a link to this to your mom.
Oh yeah, I will. I don't have my phone with me. Do you want more water?
No, I'm good. I got plenty. Feel free to help yourself. Alright.
Do you use Photoshop to transfer words onto your comic? Megan asks.
I do.
Megan!
Hey, Megan. Yes. My handwriting is atrocious. And so I usually do lettering. It's in Clip Studio Paint these days, which is another our editing software. The reason I've kind of switched over to that is because Photoshop is expensive, and also Clip Studio has tools that are specifically designed for comics. They have like speech bubble lettering and stuff that's really, really convenient and has really sped up my process. I've kind of been able to mess with it a lot lately with these short comics. For this particular story, there is no dialogue. There is no text. When the characters do speak, they speak in pictures. So the main emote that happens is when they say something, it's just a small little watercolor doodle of an apple inside of a speech bubble. That's what
They speak in emoticons.
Basically. I think there are 3 symbols for dialogue in this comic, and it's question mark, exclamation mark, and apple. And that's it. That's all anyone says. It's a pretty simple, straightforward little story. All right, so that's it for that kind of minty tone wash. Let's just go ahead and do the leaves on it. There's not a lot.
Yeah, I mean your handwriting isn't terrible, but like when
It's not really comics worthy.
I remember with the Strange that you had used a program to like mimic your lettering, and it didn't really work well, and they had you do a different one, right?
Yeah, so you said that the nice way, which is I had I found a program that allowed me to create a font out of my handwriting so it would match the artwork a little bit, and it looked fine-ish. And then I sent it when the publisher acquired the comic, and they were looking at it. They're like, "This looks great. We love the art. Your handwriting is atrocious. We will send you a font that kind of sort of matches the same look." So I use a font that they bought the rights to that resembles my handwriting, but is cleaner.
It was like weird things, right? Like the all of the exclamation points and things
Yeah,
like that kind of.
my punctuation isn't like as bold as it needed to be. Stuff like that. Do some artists just write it in? Hi, Matthew. That's me. Yeah, they're especially if they were more classically trained comics artists before like comic editing software was a thing. Yes, I do know several comic book artists who will just letter on the page and who are very good at lettering on the page. They can just kind of cruise through it. I am not one of those men.
And like calligraphy and like lettering is like a thing. Like for I remember for Estranged for the cover title, right? They hired somebody to do that, and he did an awesome job. I love the lettering on Estranged on the cover.
Yeah, Jim Tierney. He's a designer and a letter artist. There's a decent chance that if you've seen a cover in the past few years and thought, "Dang, that's a nice cover," there's a pretty good chance he had a hand in it somewhere. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Jim's work, and when they told me that they had contracted him to design the logo for Estranged, I was so excited.
I'm gonna ask, was hiring a letterer something they suggested, or did you want to do it yourself?
I'm a bit of a control freak, and so I kind of prefer to do it myself. But also, they didn't really offer or suggest it. I'm an author illustrator working for a big publisher, and they kind of expect you to kind of be the whole package, which is kind of how I like it anyway. But it was never really discussed that we'd have a letterer. If I had really wanted to, I'm sure I could have brought it up. I probably would have had to hire them myself. But it was just something I was comfortable enough doing, especially once we kind of got the font picked out and under control.
I feel like for the cover, like you could have lettered it yourself and it would have been good. But this guy's job is to do that, and I think with your drawing coupled with like his lettering, it looked really awesome.
Yeah, Jim designed the logo to kind of match the tone of the artwork, and he's much more experienced and much better at it than I am. And hand lettering a comic is one thing. A logo where a lot of the sales are based on it and it's going to be used in a lot of the marketing, I was not comfortable creating that kind of thing myself. I just don't have the training or know-how. People go to college for years and years to learn how to do proper like typography, and I wasn't about to just kind of barge in there like a jerk and pretend that I knew what I was doing with no training whatsoever. Is that the same? That is the same shade as the grass in this one, right?
Like you hand lettered the Goblin cover.
Yeah, so
that looks good.
I hand lettered the title on the Goblin. That one is a little bit different though, because I'm probably going to hand letter for the cover of Trollable Pancakes too. I'm going to try and be a little free flow with it. The Goblin was easy because I was trying to mimic the fonts of like illuminated religious manuscripts, which features pretty heavily in the story. And so I literally just had reference files of like monks' handwriting, and I just imitated it. I can imitate different types because it's the same principle as drawing from life. If I can draw a tree while I'm looking at it, I can draw how that monk did the letter A or whatever. I can just imitate the shapes. But
yeah, illuminated manuscripts are really great examples of like lettering masters. Like they did artwork with their letters, like
it's great.
So complex patterns and filigree and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, they're beautiful. We go to the Cloisters as often as we can here in New York, which is a branch of the Metropolitan Museum where they house religious and medieval art, and they have a whole collection of illuminated manuscripts. As well as, I think we noticed last time we were there, they also have a collection of like the stuff that the Abbey's illuminators would work on when they were sick of the manuscripts or needed a break. So there's like really fancy like playing cards that they would just gamble with their fellow monks that they had illustrated, stuff like that. They even have like basically proto-medieval like comic strips where we've seen ones where like in the same ink as this beautifully illuminated gold filigreed book, and then a little scrap of paper that was probably the back of like a reject page where they've doodled a thing, like a little like caricature comic making fun of the abbot, and this was made in like the 15th century or something.
It lasted till now.
Yeah, it's
for life.
it's in a museum. All we know of that abbot is the unflattering cartoon that one of the monks made of him. It's pretty awesome. I love that kind of stuff.
I mean, the purpose of illuminating was to make these books like works of art, so that they would last forever. And it's funny that like also his little jab at his boss also lasted forever.
Yeah. If you guys don't know what illuminated manuscripts are, it's like illustration, but they usually go a bit further into like really ornate type and sometimes gold leaf, things like that. What graphic novel are you reading after Snapdragon? So Snapdragon's done. It's the graphic novel I just recently read by Kat Lay, I think is how you pronounce her last name. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing book. One of my favorite comics I've read in a while. Right after that, I finished reading the latest Luke Pearson Hilda book, Hilda and the Mountain King, which is also great. A lot of good trolls in that one too. What's next on my to-read shelf graphic novel-wise? I've got Grimoire Noir by Vera Green Tea is on my to-read shelf. It's kind of a gothic film noir-esque comic. It's got witches and ghosts and stuff. What else? I'm trying to think of what comics I have over there. You recently got me for Christmas. I haven't read it yet. The compendium of the Jim Henson Storyteller comics.
Oh yeah.
You got me the Dragons set.
Yeah. Actually, you is that one we know somebody from?
Yeah, we know a couple of the illustrators in that. Hannah Lavender is one of the illustrators. They're a friend.
Beautiful art.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. All right, we'll go back to blues and different greens for that in a second. Let's move on to a different green.
And Trunk did one of the fairy ones, right?
Yes, I have the standalone. Well, no, not Trunk. We have another one. I can't remember. I have so many of those Storyteller comics. All right, let's do the different green. Kind of a more yellowy. I gotta clear out this mint green first out of the palette. Trying to think what other comics. I'm also reading a couple webcomics. Jake Wyatt's Necropolis has started updating again, which is kind of a dark epic fantasy. My favorite right now is Barbarous by Yuko and Ananth, who are friends that we know from here in Brooklyn. It's this really, really fun urban fantasy about it takes place in kind of a Brooklyn-y city about a wizard school dropout and her stressed out familiar like super in her apartment. Really charming, beautifully drawn. I highly recommend it. Forget to move you guys down when I get down to the bottom of the page here. Oops. So he's in this little like shadowed thicket, but out here is a big open field, so it's going to be kind of lighter, more yellowy colors.
I feel like the dog is Kitsu when he's dreaming. This is where he goes.
Mm-hmm. It does kind of feel like that. I'm going to go ahead and paint a wash up here. And I'll add in different tones for different kinds of trees later, but just kind of an overall green.
So we do a lot of going to Prospect Park, and I know whenever we go to the park or whenever we're in nature, you do a lot of sketching of trees and things like that. Is that you feel like that helps, like gives you variety of type and color?
Yeah. Somewhere in Estranged, there's not a lot of like actual nature in the Estranged books since urban fantasy, but I felt that like my environment work, especially nature work, was getting a little samey. I was kind of repeating patterns. And so this last year I spent a ton of time, like you were saying, doing studies in Prospect Park, which is the big kind of forested park near our apartment.
The best park in New York.
It's great.
Fight me.
You should go if you're in the town once lockdown is over. Yeah, and so it's kind of given me this sort of mental library of shapes and patterns, and now I feel like I can kind of convincingly pull off like a forest from the imagination.
Lauren says, I absolutely adore Barbarous.
Yeah, Barbarous rules. They've said that once they're done with this arc, that they're gonna collect it, maybe like through Kickstarter, into a graphic novel, and I cannot wait. I need to own a print version of it. Alright, we're gonna do a little bit more vivid green in the foreground.
I love that the little dryad tree spirit girl has cherry blossom hair.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit me missing being outside, because this is like around when like peak blossom season happens in New York, and it's really
Just starting, yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to be in the parks and like out on long walks at this time. It's a little bit of a bummer that we can't. So this is maybe me projecting my missing the blossom season.
Yeah, before the lockdown, we actually went over to our friend's house. They live not too far from here, and they have a tree in their backyard that is like the harbinger of spring. Like it's always the first one to go,
Yeah.
and it just started budding. So Lauren says that they have the first 2 collections and the fanzine.
Oh, you got that fanzine? I think there are kids watching the stream, so we can't talk about the fanzine too much, but it's a good one.
But we know of it.
Yeah, Yuko was telling me about it last time we were hanging out at a party. All right, just coming along. I'm gonna use these same greens up here. I want this green wash pretty light on these background trees, otherwise they'll kind of overwhelm the characters in the foreground. I'll come back in after this and put in kind of a more bluish green on some of these tones to kind of add some variety to the overall color of this. Make it a little more lively.
So the face that the dog is making is quintessentially Kitsu at the park.
Yeah.
Kitsune at the park is all just happy smiles, tongue wagging, like bounding off in all directions.
Yeah. So like I said, this is the cameo of our dog. Kitsu is another thing I do lots of sketchbook studies of. And so this wasn't actually from any direct reference. This is just I've drawn him enough times at the park that like I know what he looks like when he's there. So I can just kind of draw him from memory now. That's what a lot of, I think, just good draftsmanship is just studying and learning the shapes beforehand so that you can kind of convincingly improvise them later.
Easter eggs for all of your books. There is a picture of our dog in every book.
That's true.
Somewhere.
I think even in the Goblin I managed to sneak in a cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, every project I've ever had professionally published or self-published has a cameo of our dog.
In book 1 of The Strange, it's our old dog who passed away, and you and me, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and then in book 2, both dogs are in it.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite iterations of your Kitsune drawings is the one from my Christmas present from this year.
But yeah, if you guys go back through my Instagram, you'll see that I do paintings for Matt's Christmas present every year of sort of a fantasy or sci-fi or a horror iteration of us and our dogs. Are you talking about the Monster Hunter one?
Yeah, we're like high school age monster hunters, and Kitsune is the monster that we're hunting, and he's like floating behind us, looking
He's got
all
little like vampire bat wings. It's very silly. It's just a tradition that I started when Matt and I first started dating.
It's a good one. I have a bunch of them.
When we have enough, maybe I'll do a collected zine of the illustrations I've done for your Christmas painting over the years.
Yeah. I mean, you have them all posted online right now, right?
Yeah, you can just go back to my Instagram or my Twitter and you can find them. Get a little bolder with this.
This is very relaxing music.
Yeah. Why I like this playlist. The idea is just kind of like, watercolor paint and chill. The hope is that these streams are soothing for people who watch them.
I mean, this is basically my life. I will spend time coming in and just like watching you draw for like an hour.
It's true. I'm not one of those people that is like bothered by people watching while I work. It's kind of nice because it gives me like the social pressure to keep working. Otherwise, there's like a 50-50 chance that I'll do like a brush stroke and then go check Twitter for 20 minutes. So you guys are helping me keep focused. So you can see how like kind of flat and coloring booky this looks right now, just when it's the flat tones. As I start adding in more color variety, and especially once we get to shading, it'll kind of come to life a little bit more. This is just so that everything's kind of got their specific local color.
But that is all about shading.
A lot of it, yeah, a lot of that kind of comes in there. And it kind of helps establish the mood of certain scenes. Okay. Just got a little dab of green down here.
Oh man, she would make a good D&D character too.
What racing class would she be?
Well, Druid.
Right,
For
Druid.
sure.
Yeah, Druid.
Dryad. They do have. I think there's like you could always pull something, but like you could just like modify the fur block, stat block.
Yeah.
Very naturey. It's not giants. But I think they're like if you look online, I'm sure somebody's made one for a Dryad.
So, the color detail on her. A little like brownish green branchy effects. for roots. And while I have the small brush, I'll go back and do the moss in their little swamp pond. Okay. I'm going to come back to this green a little bit later in the thicket here for some highlights, but I want to get the overall tone of that done first. But we just need one more spot of this green over here.
Yo. Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of noticing that for a lot of these, so and another note of like using color to tell the story, we don't actually see in a lot of the panels him, the troll child, transitioning from one scene to the next, and so to kind of help give the audience a sense of where he is and how he's getting to where he is, I'm using color keys from the previous scene to transition over the panels. So we have like the kind of minty green of the background here, and then you can see it silhouetted behind him as he goes into this new scene, and then we'll see that kind of same purple that I'm going to paint here in the green scene. That goes through, and then we're going to go back into the purple here, but the green highlights stay on the periphery to kind of show that he's kind of transitioned from that scene to another one.
Like a visual shorthand.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of another way to sort of subtly inform the audience of like what they're looking at, so that no one kind of gets lost or confused, like he suddenly like teleported to a different location. It kind of helps show like how close he is to the previous spot.
That's one of the concepts that Scott McCloud talks about in the Understanding Comics.
Mhm.
It's like how you create a sense of time and movement visually.
Yeah, there's a lot of different tricks to doing it, but color is one of my favorite ones. But yeah, that's another great tip from those books. So again, if you want to make comics and you're not sure where to start, Scott McCloud's books are a good educational resource.
Also, they're comics.
Okay. That's pretty good. There's our looking so far. All right, let's go ahead and do this like purple wash so we can kind of have at least a base tone color everywhere. I want kind of like a lavendery color, so we'll see if I can get that going.
And again, this area is like a more shaded area, right? So you're just switching to like a darker.
Yeah, kind of a cooler tone. There we go, that's a good tone. It's a little purple. Let's put in some more blues. I have about 5 seconds before that splash dries.
Mm-hmm.
There we go, that's a little more.
So basically, how did you tone it down? How did you lighten the color like that?
What do you mean?
Like, so you had the color originally, and then you thought better of it and decided to change it. How did you go about changing the color?
Oh, it's a little sloppy. So I put in a little bit more blue to get that kind of cooler lavender tone.
Mm-hmm.
And the first tone that I put on that was wrong was so fresh that I could literally just kind of mix it on the page with the new palette I just made.
And there's like a time frame on that, 'cause since it's dry.
Yeah, like seconds.
Right?
Yeah, you have like seconds if you're gonna pull that kind of stuff. Yeah, watercolor you can make corrections to. You just have to make those corrections within like 5-10 seconds. And even then, some pigments don't mix or come off as well, and some paper absorbs it too quickly. Like you just kind of gotta get a feel for your materials. And so you'll notice I'm like bouncing back and forth pretty quickly between the two different edges of the watercolor.
Right, because you're like pulling that liquid.
Yeah, you're just kind of pulling it onward before it can dry.
Yeah, I've always while watching you painting, I've always thought that it's such an interesting medium because of that, because it really like you can see where it like pools and you kind of like move it with the paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what gives it the like hypnotic thing. When that's why I come in and watch you do it sometimes.
Yeah,
It's very soothing.
it is. There's something kind of methodical and meditative about it that I really like. And obviously I'll get more specific with the different little bits of stone and bush in here once this kind of overall one is done. But it's just good to unify the scene.
What drew you to watercolor as a medium versus other stuff?
A few things. It's the one that works the best with like drawings underneath, and I always, when I started doing this professionally, I kind of felt I was better at drawing than I was at painting, and so I could kind of let the drawing carry more of the weight. Now I feel like I'm pretty good at both fairly equally, but
Well, yeah, after doing two full books.
yeah, you kind of learn on the job. It's fast, which for comics is a must, so that I'm not waiting days and days and days for paint to dry. A lot of illustrators and artists who I'm very inspired by, this was their way of working. So Arthur Rackham and John Bauer and Edmund Dulac, who were all turn of the century fairy tale illustrators. I'm very inspired by a lot of their work and their way of working, and this is the specific method I use was largely pioneered by Rackham. So yeah,
I really like your Arthur Rackham version of Edmund or Cinder rather.
Yeah, that's another one you guys can find on my social medias. I've done sort of fan art of my comic book characters more directly in that style. Matt and I actually got to go last year. We got to go see a collection of Arthur Rackham's originals.
They were amazing.
It was cool. They had a lot of the original sketches and paintings, and we got to look through his sketchbooks. It was neat.
Yeah, like his sketchbook work was like so clean. It was crazy.
Yeah, unless they were super scribbly. Like he would go back and forth in the two, which is kind of fun to see in the same notebook.
I remember the image that you took inspiration for your Cinder in that version. I remember that piece being really cool.
Yeah, did I paint that? Did I draw that fan art like the day after the was that when I did that?
Yeah, we went to the exhibit and
I came home and
yeah.
I drew it. It's very inspiring work.
I mean, you have a lot of Arthur Rackham art books too, so
I do.
But it's different, like seeing it in person.
Yeah, it was a cool opportunity. I want to see John Bauer originals in person, but it's kind of hard experience to come by in the U.S. He never got as big in the States as Rackham did. He was I want to say Swedish illustrator. He's huge over there.
Was it Rackham that was doing like newspaper work?
He did a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think he did some like caricature work and stuff. It's like illustration now. Everyone was kind of doing a little bit of everything. Bring this over here. I like it's purple.
Yeah.
I actually want a little bit more of the red and the purple over here because we're about to see it directly play against the troll child's skin, which is blue. I don't want it to blend into the background too much. So you can see it's subtly just a little bit warmer in tone than the one over there. This is coming along pretty good, I think. It's getting a little too directly purple. I need a little more blue in that.
Can't imagine the way that Kitsu is sleeping right now that's comfortable.
He's like wedged between the wheels of my desk chair and the legs of my drafting table.
Like hanging over the side.
Weird dog. He has like a nice pillow bed right behind us, but like that's where he chooses to nap.
He wants to be with the
He would be like a foot from us.
Fine.
Stream help. Yeah, it's fine. So once one of these purples, I'm gonna go in and do all the blues and basically finish painting the troll child. And that's probably where we'll call the stream for the day. Matt and I have to go run a quick errand. And we got a D&D game to play tonight.
Yeah.
So we still got a little bit to go on this, but I'll probably be posting these pages in the next day or two as I finish them up. If you guys want to read the story as it goes, subscribe to my Patreon. It's going to be being posted as a regular webcomic on there for the next little bit. And then once the story is done, it'll be for sale in its complete form on my Gumroad account.
You plan on doing any more of the painting of this piece online?
I don't know if we'll have the time before our game.
Because you're going to do it today.
Yeah. Keep going. Mostly I just want to do these streams of like, when we have decent daylight coming in through the window so you guys can see what I'm doing, and just kind of the mid of the workday. I'll show you guys as much of the process of these paintings as I can and the drawing bits as well. But since it's like an all-day thing, I don't want to have the stream going for, 10 hours, 12 hours. We'll miss some bits.
How long does it take you to do a full page just like this?
It depends on the complexity of the page. I'm going pretty hard on the draftsmanship of these because since there is no dialogue, the visuals are pulling 100% of the weight, so the visuals need to be good.
Right.
So from start to finish with drawing and everything, these probably take me 12 hours altogether, maybe a little more.
When you were working on Estrange, I remember like you caught like a stride at one point where you were just like burning through pages.
Yeah,
quickly.
like if I'm a little out of practice right now because I've been working on some other kind of like piecemeal stuff and a lot more writing. But when I get going, like when I get my rhythm going, I can really kind of cruise through these. If it's a simple page, like if it's just like a talking heads page where it's just characters head and shoulders having conversations, I can burn through that, paints and everything in like 6 hours. I can like have the time. But we are not at that stage yet. Also, this is a project that's just kind of for fun, and so I'm intentionally kind of taking my time to like really make it good.
Can't wait to have it go up with Pancakes.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Matt's really good at improvising and improving on recipes, and he and I have been talking about either for the sort of compiled edition or maybe for the print edition, we want to have an illustrated recipe card for troll apple pancakes. We're kind of toying with ideas of what would go into it, and so we want to make an illustrated recipe card so you can make your own troll apple pancakes at home. There is a scene planned in a few pages for the making of the troll apple pancakes, and I predict that while drawing and painting them, I'm going to be like super hungry the entire time.
It's not cookies.
No, I'm going to eat some right when the stream's done.
I have a recipe for cookies that are really good, and
Use pudding mix.
it's a pudding mix cookie, but they make so many cookies, so we are like drowning in cookie right now.
Well, you sort of boredom baked.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do. I either stress bake or boredom bake. That's the thing. Lauren says, "I'd love trying a new pancake recipe. Maybe we'll do a video of making them."
Oh, should we do a live stream with you in the center while I help?
No, you can do the cooking. I will.
No, you're better at it. Matt's we'll start a cooking Twitch channel. That'd be cute, like fantasy inspired foods. It would appeal to the cooking, like the sort of Great British Bake Off crowd, and also the D&D crowd. I bet you there's a market for that. Okay, so this is bad because this is a big wash area that's drying out, but I've just run out of the purple, so I gotta mix them up real quickly. That's what I get for not preparing properly. Safe. It's also helpful if you're doing one of these like big washes to kind of like stop at lines in the drawing, so that even if the watercolor does create a line when it dries, you can't notice it because that's where a line appears visually in the composition. So you can kind of cover it with the drawing. So like obviously if I want to stop a wash, I would stop at like the line of this tree or something.
And sometimes you want that to show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of just depending on what it is you're doing.
One of the things I love about the physical versions of your drawings that you don't get when you get a comic book or you don't see like the actual painting, the colors kind of like bleed off of the edges where the comic book lines would be, and it always gives it a cool effect that you really only get if you see the physical copy.
Yeah, I like that stuff too. I'm not using it so much in Troll Pancakes, but for the graphic novel I'm working on now, I've been experimenting with ways of laying out panels where there is going to be a little bit of that in the final product, where you'll kind of see the edge of the watercolor bleed. So I like that too. I love seeing that in other people's paintings, and I kind of want to incorporate it more into my final work. So hopefully with the current graphic novel I'm working on, there will be a little bit more of that, and it'll be kind of looser watercolor.
People always like it at the conventions that we go to, like because a lot of times we'll bring the original drawings for Stranged, and people will flip through and see them, and they've always commented on that.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good to kind of have those like signifiers of it being handmade. Oh, my foot's asleep. What happens? All right, so we're gonna do the blues on the Troll Kid, and then that'll probably be it for the stream for the day. How long have we been going? We've been streaming for almost 2 hours. Sweet. All right, let's do the Troll Kid. So he is just a straight up sky blue, straight from the paint tube.
sweet boy.
I gotta clear off the.
The sweet hungry boy.
Yeah. He just wants his pancakes.
He's already imprinted on me. I would do anything for him.
For the small child.
Yeah. The look on his face like temptation. To play.
Yeah. To play with your friends versus snack is an internal struggle I also go through constantly. Man, it's a cute drawing of him. I think this is going to be the thumbnail I post to announce when the final page goes up on Patreon. This will be the drawing right here. I gotta share this cute with the whole internet.
Wants to play so bad.
He could. That is an option available to him, but then he will not get Troll Apple Pancakes. It's a story about willpower. That's what's funny is sort of, you guys will see once the story is done and I've posted the whole thing, but I'm basically telling an epic hero's journey pacing about, force of will, but it's about getting pancakes. I think that kind of thing's funny. Also, I've discovered through the course of working on this project that I think the word pancakes is funny. Just like the word. I don't know why, I just find it amusing. I think it's maybe because my little brother used to always pronounce it pancakes. Isn't it cute? This is obviously when he was very little. He is a grown man now, but as far as I know, he does not continue to pronounce it pancakes, but he might.
It's canon. He still says it.
Yeah. Cole, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but it was very cute.
I've been held up in this city for a while due to the rain.
Like, that's Cowboy Bebop, right?
It did actually kind of sound like Spike.
There's like a few remixes on here that have dialogue from Cowboy
It makes
Bebop.
sense because it's like jazzy.
Yeah.
I hope that the rain will never stop.
Oh, I mean, actually, I think that's from that one anime we just saw, the movie with the rain. What's it called?
Oh, you think so?
Maybe. I could be wrong about that.
Weathering with You?
Weathering with You, yeah. It might be. It might not be.
Oh, I see. So as soon as it stops raining, you'll leave.
Very dramatic.
I could be wrong about that, actually. But it's a good movie.
It is. Yeah, it's the other bummer about the lockdown. There was some cool international release, like anime films here in New York that we had planned to go see. That
Yeah, we were gonna go see the re-release of Tokyo Godfather.
which we've neither of us have
I've never seen it, but I've always heard good things, and I was gonna see it in the theaters, and I was very excited about it. But
Wasn't to be.
we'll have to rent it. Do a screening here. What was the other one we were gonna see?
I don't remember. Oh, Children of the Sea.
Oh yeah. They also re-released Promare.
Again.
Yeah.
For, what is that, a third time now?
Yeah.
That was good.
That blue boy.
Mm-hmm. A wee blueberry. Alright, I'll do his hair, and then that'll be it for the stream, I think. So his hair is the same shade of blue, but just with some black mixed in. Just kind of a dark blue. It's not getting dark. There we go. Drawing and painting really small like this is very hard. Oh goodness. Because if you mess up like even a teensy bit,
Yeah, you'll lose
it's bad.
the expression on his face.
Mhm. You can't really see on the stream, but I kind of goofed this drawing a little bit. I'm gonna have to go back in and digitally kind of move bits around. The eyes a little bit too, his eyes a little bit too far in, and his face is a little too squashed. Like this one's another small drawing where I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I like that little one of him galloping. Or this one too. Both of the ones of him running are tiny drawings that I'm pretty happy with how they look. So the way I design trolls is very influenced by trolls in like Scandinavian folktales. Specifically, trolls and other kinds of fairies in those stories can make themselves look human, but the one telling feature they always have, and trolls always have in general, is they all have cow tails. And so I like to draw my trolls with like little cow tails with little bits of fluff on the end. And so they're kind of, my trolls tend to be a mix of like cows and I don't know what else. With claws and tusks. Like cows and boars a little bit.
Yeah.
Are what my trolls are.
I love the long floopy ears with a little bit of fluff on the edge.
Yeah, that's like a young cow. Switch to a bigger brush because it's a lot of surface area. Ooh, too much water. Put a little more pigment in those areas because it's a little light. you see how, because I messed up the water ratio, it's a little splotchy there in his hair?
Hmm.
It's fine, because it's a wide surface area, and it kind of gives it like that watercolory look.
Yeah.
And in a project like this, I don't mind that happening periodically. I think it actually kind of gives it some interesting life and texture. But
Especially since in this panel he is in shadow.
right, yeah, and one of the things I like about working traditionally as opposed to digitally is you actually have this kind of wider avenue for those happy accidents. So like for unexpected colors or textures to emerge. But it is something to kind of try and keep a leash on. Not too much, but just enough so that you're in control. Switch over here. What you guys doing? Oh. Clicked too many things and lost the chat. There we go. Alright, nearly finished up with this bit. And the flat colors are done. Thanks for tuning in, Tommy. Have a good one. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping this up pretty soon here. But again, if you guys would like to be able to read these final pages as I finish them, as I put in speech bubbles and kind of adjust the colors and whatnot, please subscribe to my Patreon. That's where they'll all be for the next little bit. And then keep an eye out in the future for them to go up on Gumroad as a collection. And later this year, assuming that conventions still happen later this year, I plan on having a physical edition to sell at conventions. We've had a few people ask with this and the Goblin about selling physical editions online. It's definitely something we're looking into. Right now, we don't really have the infrastructure to handle fulfillment and shipping ourselves. Otherwise, Matt would be helping me box up packages for hours after he gets home from work. But it is something I'm looking into. There's different fulfillment services I'm looking at, so hopefully soon. But in the meantime, please pick up editions on Gumroad and then catch me at a convention. So far, we're scheduled to appear at Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, which has been rescheduled for August this year. And the week before that, we'll be at FlameCon here in New York City, which is our favorite show.
It is a good one.
Because it's kind of been a crazy year, that's probably all I'm signing up for this year. Especially because those two conventions are going to be within a week of each other, which is kind of insane. So we're going to have a little bit of a light convention year this year. I think it's a little crazy, but next year I'll try to get out to more shows in different parts of the country. We've never done a show in California, and we're talking about different shows in California to apply to for next year. Probably not San Diego Comic Con, because that's a lot, but we wanted to go to Lightbox Expo.
Yeah, for sure.
My hair is getting so fluffy as it dries.
You've kind of been working on adding more digital elements. So like, you got your Gumroad. And I think you do have the shop where people can get prints online, right?
Yes, I have an imprint shop. So if you like any of my standalone paintings, you can buy those online.
I believe the Tamlin painting is in there.
That we talked about earlier. My newest painting with like a little fox statue is up on there.
That one I really like it.
Yeah, so I'm slowly kind of adding more systems so that people who can't make it to the same conventions I'm at, they can still kind of get the stuff I've got. So bit by bit over time, I've been adding more online shops and more systems for acquiring my work online. So we'll be able to distribute digital versions of Troll Apple Pancakes, and then hopefully soon we'll be able to put physical editions online. It's fun doing a webcomic again, though. I haven't done one since the first Estranged, which was almost 4 years ago now.
Or a webcomic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically where you started out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun to get back into like regular posting and kind of showing people the work as I go. Graphic novel work is great, but the downside of it is like, you know, I spend a whole year basically locked inside creating these paintings that
Nobody gets to see.
yeah, that just Matt. I mean, it's great to show them to Matt because Matt can
Hoard them like a dragon.
but no one else gets to see them for like 2 years. I hope they announce the latest graphic novel soon because I want to show you guys the paintings I've been working on for that. They've been some fun characters to design and to draw.
It's like Wanderlust.
The 2 modes. It's like, no, don't distract me. I must get apples. Yeah, so for this one, it's literally just going to be a speech bubble with just a little apple in the middle. Personally speaking, I like dialogue-less comics and narratives. They kind of require the reader to invest a little bit more of themselves in it to kind of interpret what they're seeing. And they're a little more like inherently international. You don't have to worry about like translation teams or whatever.
There was a time when it was like real big, like I remember the Flight anthology.
Yeah, there's some wordless ones there.
Super popular. I worked at Barnes and Noble when that was out.
I want to see more comics anthologies too. This is the thing that you and I have talked about a lot about. You know, there's so many of my colleagues that are doing such interesting work in comics in short stories and like kind of short form, but there's not really much of a system in place in America to sort of widely distribute short comics, so not a lot of people get to read them.
I mean, it's like a convention culture, like people that go to the conventions a lot, like, you know, they get to see a lot of these zines and collect a lot of these zines that are small press published and stuff like that. But if you wanted to get, you know, more people to see them as like a compilation, it would be cool.
Yeah. All right, I think that's probably about it for the stream. So we got almost all the flat colors done. I'll be going in later tonight, probably while we're playing D&D over the internet and adding local colors and shading and stuff. So these pages will be up online on Patreon in a couple days. So look forward to that. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate the company, and I will see you all soon. Oh yeah, don't forget to sign up for Patreon. If you subscribe to Twitter or Instagram, we'll be posting when these things go live. Yeah, buy my books. All right, thank you guys so much. Bye.